I'm Anna Urban, and this is the Wildly Different podcast. I'm going to talk about all the wildly different takes out there on ADHD, neurodivergence, spirituality, manifestation, the meaning of life, trauma, shame, joy, purpose, and of course, all the actionable, practical strategies from the super scientific to the super esoteric. Some episodes will leave you with more questions than answers, but that's exactly the point. Is ADHD a disorder or a gift? Are we here to hack our time or maybe even to reimagine what productivity looks like entirely? How do we get ourselves to do the things we say we're going to do, even when every cell in our body would rather do something else? Are we neurodivergent, or are we aliens from Atlantis sent here to evolve humanity? Are supplements a scam? What's the deal with ADHD meds, and why do we have so much drama about it? If any of these questions resonate with you, then you've come to the right place. Let's get untamed.
Hello, and welcome back to the Wildly Different podcast. I'm Anna Urban. I'm the founder of the holistic group coaching program, ADHD Untamed, and today we're diving into a topic that is close to my heart and a game changer for anyone with ADHD, without ADHD, doesn't matter. Clarity. And not just any clarity, but the kind of clarity that comes from understanding your why. I know that everybody, especially those of us with ADHD, want to jump to the strategy because they think that that is what will bring them the clarity, but it's actually the other way around. If you don't know why you're doing something, it's almost impossible to break it down into doable steps. And for ADHD brains, that often means that it's just not happening. It's just not happening. And that continues the cycle of disappointment, frustration, shame, overcompensating, back to disappointment, frustration, shame, and on and on. But the truth is, this isn't just about getting things done. It's about shifting from making decisions out of fear of failure, fear of judgment, of not being good enough, to making choices from a place of love and self-compassion. If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start moving with purpose, stick around because I've got a story to share, I've got actionable tips for you to try, and I have a challenge that could change everything for you. Let's talk about why lack of clarity is such a time thief for ADHD brains. One of the biggest challenges that we face is what I call the clarity trap. It's that nebulous space where you know you've got things to do, but they're so vague or so overwhelming that your brain just shuts down. So instead of tackling your to-do list, you're scrolling on your phone, you're reorganizing your pantry, or you're hyper-focusing on something completely unrelated. The reason this sounds so familiar and like I'm in your brain is because I've been there 1,000 times over. My clients have been there 1,000 times over. There's also this misconception that I would love to debunk for you, that having an interest-based nervous system, right, which is what ADHD is, that we're just gonna drop everything and pursue whatever whim or fancy floats our way. But that is not true. And a lot of people use this idea to stay stuck. They say things like, oh, well, I just get distracted, that's just how my brain is, or I just follow the dopamine. That is not what it is at all. If someone tells you otherwise, they just don't get it. The truth is, there is no greater feeling than moving closer and closer to your why. There is no greater dopamine than moving closer and closer to your why. I don't care how addicting the Instagram algorithm or the TikTok algorithm or the online shopping algorithm is. There is no greater dopamine than pursuing your why. So often what happens is when we tell ourselves, oh, this is just the way my brain is wired, I'm just chasing the dopamine, what we're doing is we're reinforcing a belief that we have no control over it. And you can believe whatever you want to. Doesn't make it true. This happens, this lack of clarity happens because our ADHD brains crave specificity and direction. We need to know exactly what needs to be done and why it matters. That is actually what an interest-based nervous system is. We need to be interested in what we're doing, not because it's giving us random bits of dopamine, but because we give a shit, because we care about the thing. We care about why it matters. That is what will break the cycle of getting sucked in to something for no reason. Without that clarity, every task feels like an uphill battle. And I'm going to give you some examples of how a lack of clarity makes our everyday tasks so much harder. When we're already juggling time blindness and executive dysfunction, guess what gets prioritized? Absolutely nothing. Or at least nothing meaningful, because we don't know what we care about. And if you aren't sure of your why, if you're not sure what you care about, join the club. There are so many people in the exact same position as you. I was in that position, but at least now you have the clarity, the self-awareness to know, oh, I don't actually know what my why is. That's a beautiful, beautiful place to start. It is okay if you don't know what your why is, right? It took me 30 plus years to figure out what my why was. Up until 3 years ago, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. This was so apparent in my coaching session that I just had with an Untamed member earlier today. So she came to me struggling to nourish her body, and she was really struggling with executive functions. So she had fallen in the trap of thinking, I have to eat better so that I can be more productive. And that should mindset is what completely zapped her motivation. And I asked her this simple question, which is, why do you want to nourish your body? And at first she hesitated. She repeated the exact same productivity-based reasoning. Well, it'll allow me to be more productive, right? I should do it because it expands my capacity. But then I challenged her to go deeper. It's that, who gives a shit, right? About our capacity. If we only have an hour of capacity, but in that hour we pursue our why, that is worth 10 hours of doing things we don't care about, right? So I challenged her to go deeper. I said, what if nourishing your body isn't about being productive at all? Like, productivity just for the sake of productivity isn't going to last very long. What if it is about something that you genuinely love and value? And after some probing, after some reflection, she shared that when she takes care of her body, when she nourishes her body, she feels clear-headed. She feels more present. It allows her to engage more fully with her family, pursue her creative projects, pursue this leadership program that she's in, do strongman competitions that she loves. We rattled off, in like 90 seconds, she rattled off like 10 reasons, 10 things that she actually genuinely cared about more than just productivity. She talked about how nourishing her body enables her to train, something that she loves and feels proud of. It enables her to lead with the energy and clarity that it deserves, right? So together, we shifted her narrative from, I have to do this to be productive, to, I love to give myself the clarity that I deserve. I love to nourish my body in order to support my why. That shift from fear and obligation to love and purpose completely reframed how she approached her tasks, right? Nourishing her body was no longer about avoiding failure or meeting an expectation. It became a loving act of self-support, rooted in her why. By the end of our session, she had a much clearer sense of purpose. And because of that clear sense of purpose, she had a much clearer direction of action steps to take next. Nourishing her body wasn't about, avoiding failure. It became about the shift to self-love. In just a minute, I'm going to talk about what to do if you don't actually love, if you don't actually love what you're doing, if you don't actually love your job. I'm going to talk about how your why still matters even in that situation. But first, let's just, rewind a little bit and talk in general about why understanding your why is so powerful. It's the anchor that grounds you when everything else feels chaotic. When you're clear on why something matters, it becomes easier to break it down into actionable steps. And again, for ADHD brains, that clarity can be the difference between starting a task and avoiding it entirely. But your why has to come from a place of love, from a place of self-compassion. Fear-based whys sometimes might get you started, but they're unsustainable. They lead to burnout. They lead to resentment. They lead to a constant feeling of never enough. They lead to throwing in the towel. Love-based whys never quit. Love-based whys, because love is infinite. Love, there's always more love to go around. Love-based whys fuel you with curiosity, with compassion, with joy. They create momentum that lasts even in a situation that is challenging, even in a situation that isn't ideal. And so this is the part where I want to talk about some objections that you might be having, rightfully so. I know that some of you might be thinking, but Anna, what if I hate my job? What if I hate my job? I hate my boss. I hate that I'm in a toxic work environment. They're unrealistic. Or maybe, what's the point of clarity if I'm drowning in debt? What's the point? There's nothing I love about my situation. Here's why love and clarity still matter. First of all, even in a job that you hate, or even in a toxic work environment, there are usually pieces of it that connect back to what you value. Think back to why you took the job in the first place. Or if there's nothing, absolutely nothing that you enjoy about your job, which is totally fine, right? Let's accept reality. Let's accept it for what it is. Can you acknowledge that maybe your paycheck allows you to support the family that you love, right? It's a means to an end. Or maybe it funds your creative passions. Focusing on these connections can help you reclaim some of your energy and make tasks feel more purposeful, even if you're in a less than ideal situation, even if it's just temporary. And second, clarity isn't just about accepting your current reality. It's about using that awareness to take steps towards something better. So let's say that you really do hate your job, right? You do some reflecting and you realize that it really just doesn't align with your why and it never will, right? You realize that you need a change. That clarity can be the impetus that you need to explore opportunities that do. But it starts with understanding what your why even is. Of course you're overwhelmed. Of course you're frustrated in your job if you low level hate it every single day that you're there, right? That clarity allows you to accept where you are now without getting stuck in frustration and avoidance, which often comes from confusion. And as for debt, I hear you. It's easy to say there's nothing I love about this debt. But what if you reframed it? Paying down debt might not spark joy, right? But the act of doing so could represent freedom, stability, the chance to invest in what you truly do care about. It creates momentum. Figure out a way to make that momentum more visible. I've seen these, I think it's like this, it's like a big envelope, or you can even create this at home, but you put in, or you know what, you can download it, I'm sure, for free from Canva or Etsy or whatever, where it's you save $10,000, but it's you use ones, so singles, fives, tens, 20s, and hundreds. And so every time you check one off, it's you can visibly see that you are moving the needle. I love something like that. ADHD brains, we need to make it visible. We need to make our why visible. We need to remind ourselves of it every single day. Every single day I write down my why. Every single day. Could you take 30 seconds to connect with your why? It makes an insane difference. But going back to the debt example, right? Sometimes, when you are on your path, it is sometimes easier to keep that momentum going, right? I feel like I am on my path. And so showing up every day feels good. But I remember when it didn't. I remember when I was in debt. I remember when I didn't enjoy my job. And then after I left my job, I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And so how can you make it tangible? How can you make it visible that you are taking steps towards your why? And so with the debt example, with, let's say you're saving $10,000, $1 might be a drop in the bucket, right? $5 might be a drop in the bucket. But if you can have a visual representation of actually what that looks like, right? And it's all split up into ones, five, tens, and you can cross one off and you can see it in the bigger picture of your why, right? So the act of paying down debt might not spark joy, right? But what it represents could very well be the reason that you stick with it. You can also apply this example to fitness, right? To exercise. It might represent, freedom. It might represent stability. It might represent joy to you. It might represent whatever it is that you care about, right? Connecting to the task with a love-based why allows you to shift from obligation to empowerment. Your why, no matter what situation you're in now, figuring out your why allows you to shift your focus from obligation to empowerment. And that's such a beautiful, beautiful, expansive place to be because it creates momentum. And that is what sees us through on the hard days, is the momentum from the days before. So how do you find your why, right? How do you figure out what it is that you actually give a shit about? Well, first of all, if you want, really concrete direction in that arena, I have an entire masterclass on discovering your why, your untamed values, your blueprint, right? The parts of you that make you you. But I want to give you just a quick little synopsis here. So one, take a minute to just ask yourself, to just pause and reflect, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Even if it's something like folding laundry, why am I doing this? If the answer is fear-based, it sounds something like, because if I don't do this, I'll get in trouble, or because I need to be productive, or because I'm supposed to, right? Because I have to, right? But dig deeper. What is the love-based why underneath? Why do you want to do it? So that would be step one. Step two is to anchor in your values. It's to think about what matters most to you. Is it connection? Is it creativity? Is it growth? Is it something else? Is it, is it family? Align your tasks with those values. And if you have a task that doesn't align with your values, with your wants, with your desires, with your why, take it off your mother freaking list. Take it off. Take it off. There's only so much time, there's only so much energy that you have to give. If it doesn't align with your values, it is sucking your time. It is sucking your energy. Even if it's something like making dinner for your family, right? We can so easily fall into the trap of, I have to do this, right? Which can feel draining. It becomes so much more expansive when we remind ourselves we don't actually have to do anything. I don't have to feed my family technically, but I want to because I want them to have energy and I want them to feel supported. But let me think of an example that maybe of something that you don't actually give a shit about. What about sending holiday cards? Sending holiday cards. Does that align with your values? If you do some digging and you find that I really just don't care. I feel like I've been doing this for years because I should, because everybody else does it, because it's expected of me, because, right? If none of your reasons for doing it align with your why, don't do it. And then then your job is to navigate the discomfort that comes with disappointing others, or your perception of disappointing others, or your perception of not living up to some sort of standard, where when you can drop that, you have so much more energy for the things you actually do care about. All right, so step 3 is to start small. Choose one task. Choose one task and rewrite it with your why in mind. Instead of, I have to respond to this email so that I don't get fired, or so that I don't look lazy, or so that I don't look like a team player. Respond to emails. I want to respond to emails to nurture my relationships and to show my commitment, right? Whatever it is, it's going to look different for you no matter, it's going to look different for you depending on what situation you're in, whether you are an entrepreneur or you work for somebody else or you are a full-time, stay-at-home mom. I want you to dig deep on what your why is behind the most mundane of mundane tasks. If all of this resonates with you, if any of this resonates with you, I want to invite you to the ADHD Untamed Clarity Challenge. Because the challenge isn't just about theory or learning, right? It's about taking action and putting those concepts into practice immediately so that we can form these new neural connections, right? Listening to a podcast is one thing, and it's great if you're feeling motivated by it. But you and I both know that we listen to a podcast, we take notes, it resonates for a day or two, and then we forget about it, right? Then we forget about it. But when you have the accountability, when you have the support of a group, it is so much easier to take action on the things that we care about, on our why. Every single day of the challenge, you'll get a prompt from me, along with a short video explanation and an assignment that you'll apply to your day right away. So by the end of the challenge, you'll have not just navigated clarity, but also you've built self-awareness and emotional regulation. If you're listening to this before January 20th, now is the perfect opportunity to join Untamed because we're doing the Clarity Challenge live as a group, and you can only get access to the challenge as a member. I'll be leading Untamed members through the challenge together, and the energy of this live group is unreal. It is unbeatable. Some members are actually doing this challenge for a fourth time because every single time they do it, they gain deeper insights and more clarity. It's that snowball effect. When you roll a snowball down a hill, in the beginning it's just like this tiny little thing. But then as it picks up more and more snow, well now you've got a boulder, now you've got an avalanche. That is how this process works. That is the process of getting untamed, right? So that's the reason that people have done this challenge more than once. But this year, in the past I've offered it a couple times throughout the year, but this year I'm actually only offering it live once, and that time is right now. So for those of you listening before January 20th, there is still time to join live. Doors close on January 19th, so if you are ready to take back your time and your energy, do not wait on this. If you're catching this later, the challenge is still there. You can, take it on whenever you need it. There are people who do the challenge, in Untamed throughout the year. And so you can absolutely find an accountability buddy. If you're listening to this after the 20th, again, you can still access the Clarity Challenge at any point. Doing it live, though, is just chef's kiss, right? So head to my website, annaurban.com, to see if Untamed is currently open if you are listening to this after the 20th. So just to wrap all of this up, just want to offer you some closing thoughts, right? Clarity isn't just about knowing what to do. It's about knowing why it matters. And when you approach your why with love instead of fear, everything shifts. Tasks become less overwhelming, time feels more manageable, you start building a life that truly aligns with who you are. So today, I challenge you to find one love-based why in your life. Share it with me, or you can find me on Instagram, AnnaUrbanUntamed. Share it with somebody that you trust, or just write it down for yourself. Let that clarity guide you one step at a time. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay wild. I love you so much, and I'll see you next time.